The movie starts in a small rural village where a massive storm has caused widespread destruction. Trees have fallen, and many homes are severely damaged. The next morning, David surveys the damage and finds that a large tree has fallen on their house's window. His son, Billy, fell, and David helps him up. He then takes his wife to check on their lake house, which has also been completely destroyed. They notice a large amount of mist coming from behind the mountain, which David finds strange and unsettling. He decides to visit the neighbors to discuss the situation. David approaches his neighbor Brent Norton, with whom he has had many issues in the past, and tries to communicate calmly. Norton tells him that his own car was damaged, and he lost many things because of the storm. Norton asks David to go to the city with him to buy supplies to repair the damage. David agrees, seeing it as an opportunity to mend their strained relationship. David, Norton, and Billy get into the car and head to the city as planned. On the way, they notice a large military vehicle working on repairing the damage. Norton informs David that the soldiers are from a nearby military base and mentions a new project called the Peak of the Mountain. He asks David if he knows anything about this project. David starts to wonder if it might involve spacecraft or extraterrestrial beings that the government is hiding from the public. David and Norton arrive at the store, where David talks to the employee and notices that Sally and Ollie are very busy due to the crowd. David thanks Norton for helping him and asks if he and Norton have reconciled. Norton says they've probably reconciled, though he's not entirely sure. Soon, a group of soldiers enters the store, excited because they're about to leave the city for a vacation with their families. One soldier tries to get close to Sally, while an elderly woman named Irene expresses her joy at their presence. She asks Billy what happened during the storm, and he recounts the damage to their home and their experiences that night. During this, David notices a woman named Amanda staring at him. A military officer enters the store and informs the soldiers that their leave has been canceled due to an emergency, and they need to return to the base immediately. The store is filled with confusion as people try to understand what's happening. An elderly man runs into the street, bleeding from his nose, and desperately tries to enter the store. He screams about terrifying creatures that are attacking everyone and describes how they devoured his friend. The people in the store try to calm him, but he is overwhelmed by fear. Suddenly, mist engulfs the area, obscuring everything. The man's cries are heard, and everyone is shaken and frightened, trying to make sense of the situation. The entire place starts shaking violently, and the manager insists that everyone remain calm and stay where they are. David, worried about his children left at home, decides he must return. Meanwhile, a woman named Carmody suggests that the mist is a sign of death and the cause of all the chaos, implying that it could be the end of the world. David, his son Billy, and some other people, including Irene and Amanda, sit together. Amanda offers to look after Billy to keep him calm. The shop owner decides to find blankets to cover the child, while David goes to the storage room and discovers that the shop's generator has failed. As David navigates in the dark, he hears a strange noise and sees someone trying to break in through the back door. He quickly runs back inside and informs the others about the situation, urging them to check the generator and stressing that they are all in danger. Everyone heads to the generator area, and they distribute flashlights to see better. A boy named Norm decides to help and discovers that something is blocking the generator. Despite David's concerns about not knowing what's behind the blockage, the others dismiss his worries, arguing that he's just a famous artist with no expertise in this area. David expresses his fear for their safety, but Jim insists that David stay out of their business. Norm ventures outside into the mist, but quickly loses visibility. When he returns, the others mock David, thinking his concerns were unfounded. Suddenly, a strange creature appears and pulls Norm outside. They try to save him, but the creature is too powerful. The group is paralyzed with fear as more monsters emerge, attacking and killing Norm. David and Ollie try to help, but David is forced to let go of Norm to protect himself. The monsters continue to attack, and David fights back with an axe, severing part of the creature. Eventually, Ollie manages to close the door, and they find temporary safety. David then confronts Jim, blaming him for the situation and the chaos they've faced. They attempt to resolve their conflict and return to the shop, where the tension remains high as they deal with the aftermath. David tries to figure out what to do next and discusses the situation with Norton, explaining everything that has happened. Norton is skeptical and finds it hard to believe David. David insists that Norton should check for himself if he doubts the story. They end up arguing and physically fighting, with Norton suspecting David is seeking revenge for a previous lawsuit. Others are shocked by the confrontation and are uncertain about David's claims. David shows the manager and some others the blood on the ground and the scattered pieces of evidence, which suddenly vanish. David convinces them of the reality of the threat. Norton, however, continues to dismiss the danger, believing that David is mistaken. He tries to rally some people to support him, and Carmody argues that what's happening is a punishment from God, citing religious texts to scare everyone into submission. Ollie intervenes, asking her to stop frightening the children and threatening to expel him if he doesn't. David reassures his son and tries to comfort him, promising to protect him. He speaks with the others, suggesting they start a fire for warmth and safety. Amanda offers a gun to Ollie for his experience with firearms. Meanwhile, Norton insists on going outside into the mist, ignoring David's warnings about the danger. David argues with Norton, emphasizing the risk of going outside and suggesting that someone be tied with a rope to ensure their safety. He also mentions that there is a rifle in his car that someone should retrieve. David and the others prepare to deal with the threat by sending someone to retrieve the rifle from David's car. As the man tries to bring back the rifle, David and the remaining men hold onto the rope to ensure his safety. However, the man returns screaming, badly injured, with only half of him left intact. Meanwhile, Jim and his team work to rig the lights in the store so they will turn on if anyone tries to enter. Suddenly, a flying creature attacks the window, followed by a swarm of creatures. David realizes that the lights are deceiving the creatures, but soon notices that other creatures are attacking and eating the ones outside. Jim quickly shuts off the lights, but the glass breaks, allowing the creatures to enter the store. David scrambles to find a way to fend off the creatures and save the people inside. Some are killed in the chaos. David manages to kill a significant number of creatures and, with Ollie's help, rescues his son at the last moment. David and Ollie successfully block the opening in the glass, and many people begin to believe in the danger. David leaves his son with Amanda and joins the others to check on the rest of the group, ensuring everyone's safety. Amanda sees that the elderly woman has taken pills in an attempt to end her life, and she does her best to help her. David talks to the men, emphasizing the need to find a way out and suggests going to the pharmacy next to the store to get some medicines. Amanda enters and warns them that the mist covers a much larger area than they think, and there are no safe places to go. They discuss how Carmody's actions might have a negative impact on people and make them more distressed. Carmody believes they must sacrifice themselves for humanity's survival and to lift the curse, but Amanda is concerned that people might find it hard to believe or accept her message. David reassures Amanda that fear and panic often cloud people's judgment, making them forget to think rationally. Meanwhile, Billy continues to cry, afraid for his mother. David tries to comfort him, assuring him that his mother is safe. David prepares to head to the pharmacy, but Carmody warns that this might anger God further. They enlist a soldier named Jessup to join them. They safely arrive at the pharmacy and start gathering necessary medications. However, they notice that there are many bodies wrapped in spider-like webs above them. Suddenly, one of the people in the group grabs Jim and asks for help. It turns out to be the same military officer who had entered earlier, who now starts screaming and apologizing, claiming it was a mistake. His eyes turn an eerie white, and spiders begin to emerge from his face. An enormous spider appears in front of Jim, and Ollie shots with the gun. The situation rapidly deteriorates as a large number of spiders begin to attack the men, killing them one by one. The officer collapses on the ground, and a massive swarm of spiders pours out of his body. The group tries to defend themselves by setting fires everywhere, but they are overwhelmed by the terror and forced to retreat without rescuing their companions. Panicking, they rush back into the store, and David grabs his son, holding him tightly in his arms to comfort him amidst the chaos. In the morning, David wakes up to find Carmody speaking to a large group of people. They are convinced by her words and agree to follow her directives, fearing that her prophecies might come true. David realizes the new threat from within is even greater than the creatures outside, and Ollie recalls the military officer's comments, suspecting a hidden truth. David confronts one of the soldiers, pressuring him to reveal what he knows. The soldier denies any knowledge, but David finds it suspicious that the soldier's two companions are missing. When David and his group enter the loading area, they discover the two soldiers there, apparently having committed suicide. Jim, enraged, drags the soldier out and accuses the military of being responsible for the mist and the creatures. Jessup admits and explains that the military had created a dimensional gateway that allowed the creatures to enter their world. As he tries to expose the truth, Carmody attacks him, claiming that they caused divine wrath. She incites the crowd to turn on him, leading them to beat him. In the chaos, Carmody orders the people to throw Jessup outside to the monsters. Despite Jessup's pleas for mercy, they force him out and close the door behind him. Jessup faces a terrifying creature that drags him away, sealing his fate as the people inside continue to scream in horror. David tries to shield his son from the unfolding chaos, reassuring him that everything will return to normal. Billy, terrified, pleads with David to protect him from the monsters. The next day, they decide to leave the store, only to find Carmody blocking the exit. She accuses them of blasphemy and demands their sacrifice, declaring that they must be punished. The crowd turns hostile and David and his group are trapped. Carmody insists that Billy be the first to be sacrificed. As the situation escalates, Ollie, desperate, shoots at Carmody. David manages to escape with his son and a few allies, including Irene and Dan, in David's car. Ollie, however, is taken by a monster. As they flee, David finds a gun in the car and uses it to defend them. They drive past the mob, who watch them escape. They eventually reach David's house only to find his wife ensnared in a cocoon like the others in the pharmacy. Devastated, David continues to push forward, determined to protect Billy and survive against the encroaching danger. As David surveys the devastation around him, he encounters a giant monster with terrifying claws. With their fuel running out and the car coming to a halt, the group realizes that their situation is dire and there's no escape. David, facing the bleak reality, decides that death is preferable to the horrors awaiting them. With only 4 bullets left, David decides to end the lives of his companions and himself. He's overcome with grief and screams in anguish as he tries to kill himself. When the bullets run out, he steps out of the car, resigning himself to be consumed by the monsters. However, he is suddenly saved by a military tank, which is part of a rescue operation. The soldiers, having managed to lift the mist from their path, begin to clear the area of monsters with fire and explosives. David watches in a state of remorse, deeply regretting his earlier actions, as the movie concludes with his overwhelming sense of regret and sorrow. See ya in